YouTube isn't the same as it used to be. Since YouTube's creation in 2005, it has gone through so many changes. Changes in algorithm, changes in creators, changes in management. And of course, over the last nearly 20 years, society has changed. We ourselves have changed. And of course, since art reflects society, YouTube is a great demonstration to show those changes. But over the last year or two, many people have noticed a big shift in the YouTube climate. There's oftentimes more toxicity in comment sections than ever. The platform is overrun with short-form, brain-rot content that is catered to the algorithm solely to fit in into what's trending and to get as many views and as much money as possible. Many creators on YouTube, especially those that have been around since almost the beginning of the platform's creation, now feel a disconnect to the platform. They don't feel like they fit in as much as they used to. People have been saying for a long time, what happened to the old YouTube? But I feel that that is more prominent now than ever. And why is that? What happened to the heart, the authenticity, the community that YouTube had? Let's reminisce for a bit and try to figure out what happened. Another great video that was posted on this topic is Ethan Nestor's The Slow Death of YouTube, which approaches this topic from a more creator point of view. I personally found it quite thought-provoking, and it was a big inspiration to me in terms of making this video. My personal history with YouTube is that I've been watching it my entire life. Pretty much since I was 11 years old, so for the past over 13 years, I have been watching YouTube as my main form of video entertainment. I remember the first YouTube video I ever watched was Potter Puppet Pals, the mysterious ticking noise. My cousin showed it to me one time over New Year's, and I was just absolutely hooked. And pretty much since then, I've always been on YouTube as a viewer. After that, I found content creators like Fred and Shane Dawson. Give me a break, I was 12. I didn't really know what I was watching at the time. And when I was around 12 or 13, that is when I discovered Minecraft content, and it is history from there. I have been watching YouTube as my main form of content ever since then. Now, I was a child and early teen in the late 2000s to early 2010s, just to provide context on the social climate that was going on at the time. The internet was very new in its modern form. I remember my dad switching his phone from a BlackBerry to the first iPhone that was ever made. And I remember getting my first email and my first Facebook account at the age of 11, which promptly and quickly got me addicted to Farmville, which was a game that my parents also played all the time. Rest in peace, Farmville. I remember being so jealous of my parents' farms when I was a kid. But all those examples go to show that I didn't necessarily grow up with the internet. For the first about 10 years of my life, it wasn't really a factor in me growing up. My main forms of content at the time were reading and hanging out outside at the park near my house with my siblings. I of course watched a lot of cable TV as well, especially on days when I was sick, but I vividly remember spending most of my time as a child outside and not connected to devices or social media, which is a very big contrast to how Generation Alpha is being raised these days. But back then, we're talking 10, 15, almost 20 years ago, YouTube was new. It was novel, it was exciting. People were wondering what to post on this brand new platform where the possibilities were endless. And this is what people often refer to as the old YouTube. This was a time where the most common form of content you could find on YouTube was silly skits or funny cat videos. This was a time before YouTube's official partnership program, so most people on YouTube didn't even know that they could make money from posting videos. Most people were only posting what they genuinely found interesting or what they genuinely wanted to post. Very few people were motivated by money. Most people at the time were simply motivated by the joy and the excitement of posting on a new platform. And as YouTube slowly started to grow in the early 2010s, small communities were formed of content creators posting what they genuinely enjoyed posting, and viewers receiving that content positively and providing positive feedback on it. I think the word community really describes YouTube at this time. There are more genuine connections between creators and viewers. For example, if you've been on YouTube long enough, you'll remember YouTube video responses. Those haven't been around in forever, it feels like. But I believe that that aspect and that function on YouTube helped provide more of a two-way form of connection between creators and viewers, which most likely fostered much more genuine communities. Of course, just because these connections were more of a two-way street and more genuine does not mean that they were any less parasocial, because there's still a power imbalance between creators and viewers, especially when viewers are underage, as I was when I first started watching YouTube. So of course, that's its own issue, but I'm not going to get into that in this video. But the main point is that back in these older days of YouTube, the community felt more like it was able to foster discussion. And I think that that discussion and that sense of community is a big factor in what people refer to in the old YouTube. But at the end of the day, why talk about any of this? Why talk about the old YouTube? I feel like old YouTube is more discussed now than ever because of nostalgia. Personally, I find myself reminiscing back on the old YouTube days more than ever. Clearly, I still remember the first YouTube video I ever watched, but oftentimes I think about the beginning of the makeup community when people were just posting simple get ready with me's. Or makeup tutorials, especially on how to do specific Halloween makeup. I remember the silly skits, I remember the funny cat videos, and all of those things bring me nostalgia. I even find myself watching more old school YouTube videos than ever before. Meaning that I go back to old videos that I used to watch when I was a kid and I will rewatch them. Some examples of that would be the Undertale, Until Dawn, or Detroit Become Human series by Jacksepticeye, or the Dan and Phil Sims 4 series. I even sometimes find myself going back to old Minecraft videos of creators who haven't posted in a long time and whose series are sometimes even a decade old now. But why do I do this? Why do I find myself going back to old series that I've already seen before so I know the outcome, oftentimes from creators who don't even post anymore, some of whom haven't posted in almost a decade? I think I've narrowed it down to 3 main reasons why I do this. The first reason why I think I do it is as a form of escapism, back to a simpler time. When I was a kid, I had no adult responsibilities. I had no bills to pay. I didn't have an adult job to work. I had no awareness of the political, economical, or environmental climate that was going on around the world or even in my own country. I was blissfully ignorant. And I think it's okay that I was, because I was a child. What more can you expect from a child? Just let them live their life, play their games, go hang out outside with their friends. But back then, times were simpler. And I think these YouTube videos remind me of that time. And so sometimes I feel like going back and watching those videos is like a time portal into the past, from when things were simpler. And I was a child who had no idea about the 2008 economic recession. I was just playing my Wii bowling in the basement. I wasn't paying attention to any of that. The second reason why I think I do it is for comfort. I rewatch Jacksepticeye's Undertale series at least once every 2 years, sometimes once every year, depending on how I'm doing mentally. I have a tattoo from Undertale, that's how much it means to me. And I rewatched Dan and Phil Sims 4 series from the very beginning because I was going through a breakup last year. That series brought me a sense of comfort. The third reason, and the one that goes very closely with comfort, is familiarity. Going back to these old videos, I already know the outcome. I already know what's going to happen. I know what to expect from this content. And a lot of the time, I grew up with this content. Back to the Undertale example, I watched Undertale for the first time when I was 15, and I've rewatched it probably over 6 or 7 times now. Now I'm 25, and Undertale is still a huge part of my life, and I will always remember what it did for me when I was struggling mentally. I never personally participated in the Undertale fandom. I know that that in itself is also a huge can of worms that I'm not getting into, but the series itself helped me a lot. And oftentimes when I go back to these old series, for example, Until Dawn being one that I just rewatched recently, I went through the comment section and you always find so many comments of people saying, who's watching in this year, who's watching in that year? And I even saw a comment of someone saying, who's watching this in 2024? And people were replying to the comments saying, I'm watching in June, I'm watching in October, I'm watching in even November, which is now. And I think it's happening more than ever. People are nostalgic for the past, when times were simpler, when they were younger, when they had fewer responsibilities. when they didn't have to worry about Trump being reelected in the United States for president. And as I said before, I think a lot of people are grieving and reminiscing on the old community that YouTube had. Because now, you might even say that there is no community on YouTube anymore. A lot of people these days think of YouTube as more of a corporation than a community. Back in the old days of YouTube, corporations were very not involved in the platform at all. But these days, I feel like the complete reverse is true. Back in the old YouTube days, I feel like a lot of content creators were able to post whatever they wanted. They were able to post what they enjoyed, and they weren't motivated by money. Also, back in the old YouTube days, there were pretty much no sponsorships. I even remember when sponsorships were frowned upon, and if any YouTuber did a sponsorship, they were viewed as being money hungry. And now that is completely far from the truth, and sponsorships are in almost every large YouTuber's videos, which I personally don't have an issue with. I understand that a lot of content creators take sponsorships in order to avoid having to cater to the YouTube algorithm, which is another thing that in the old YouTube days, creators didn't have to worry about. Not only were there very few corporations involved on YouTube, so that means there were very few sponsorships, but people were also not concerned about the algorithm or about optimizing their content. In terms of modern YouTube now, that is very far from the truth. Another aspect that fostered YouTube as a community and not as a corporation back in the old YouTube days was YouTube Rewind. This was a video that was made at the end of every year, pretty much recapping what happened in YouTube that year. Any trends, any videos that did really well, any music, and it involved tons of creators, all often in the same spaces, interacting with each other, which was very rare to find in a general YouTube video. So you would often have a gaming YouTuber, an arts and craft YouTuber, and a vlogger all in the same room as part of YouTube Rewind. And that helped mesh all of the communities together and make one larger YouTube community. But now, YouTube Rewind has been gone for almost 5 years now. One of the last ones they made was pretty much a glorified Watch Mojo PowerPoint, just recapping some of the top moments of the year, which was extremely disappointing for viewers. I'm also pretty sure the YouTube Rewind before that became the most disliked video ever on the platform at the time, which just really showed how viewers felt that YouTube was no longer embodying the community in its YouTube Rewinds. It was more catering to corporations, which is showed in how many more late night talk shows had prominent spots in the YouTube Rewinds. YouTube failed its community. It stopped listening to the community's output and opinions when making YouTube Rewinds. Also, YouTube was often mistreating the YouTubers that were on set for YouTube Rewind. And there are many stories of various YouTubers that you can find who have told their stories online. I believe that the death of YouTube Rewind was a big symbolic end to YouTube's community, and it was a big shift towards YouTube catering to corporations more. As I also mentioned quickly not too long ago, I also think that YouTube's algorithm had a big part to play in catering to corporations. Because people know that YouTube is a lucrative site and so many people can make money with a very low barrier to entry, so many people now make YouTube videos with the sole purpose of making money. They're not posting content that they enjoy or are inspired to post. They are simply posting whatever they can churn out as quick as possible that will make them as much money as possible. A lot of this content ends up being short form content that is posted on YouTube Shorts because that content is very TikTok style trendy. And YouTube is desperately trying to hold on to his viewers and keep as many people on the platform as long as possible, but TikTok is a huge contender to that. So now YouTube has invented its own form of short form content that tons of YouTubers and new content creators are starting to post for the first time in order to cater to that type of short form content on YouTube. This short form content is focused on posting whatever's trendy. This type of algorithm that is implemented into the site has incentivized a much more corporate mentality among creators. It's no longer now about posting what you enjoy. It's about posting what's trendy. It's about posting what will get you the most views. It's about posting the video that will be #1 for the 10 most recent videos you've posted. And if a video does well, you're incentivized to make more videos of that kind. You're incentivized to post more of the same thing, rather than to take a creative risk and try something new. Even if that something new may be more interesting to you or more inspiring to you, the algorithm does not want you to do that. It simply wants you to post whatever gets you the most views and the most money. If that doesn't sound like a corporation, then I don't know what does. A great video that I recommend you watch on this topic is Curtis Connor's video, The Faceless YouTube Channel Plague. And he does a great job at explaining the rise of what I believe are non-genuine YouTubers simply trying to post to make as much money as they can. Overall though, YouTube now promotes quantity over quality. And I think that is a big reason as to why more people than ever are now missing old YouTube. None of this was a factor 15, 20 years ago. And now it's something that so many YouTubers unfortunately obsess over, because what other choice do they have? For a lot of them, this is their livelihood. And if you can't keep up, then you'll be left behind. Another reason why I think people are missing the old YouTube now more than ever, and another reason why YouTube feels more like a corporation than ever, is because of how many ads they now put on their videos. The appearance of ads has exploded on YouTube, especially in the last 6 months. I personally get at least 2 ads every 5 minutes on every single YouTube video that I watch. This even happens on videos from small channels that I watch, who likely aren't even partnered with YouTube to make any sort of money. To make matters even worse, Google is also cracking down on ad block browser extensions to make it even harder for you to get an ad-free experience on YouTube. According to YouTube, the only legitimate way you can get an ad-free experience on the platform is by paying almost $15 a month for YouTube Premium, which to me is such a far cry from the roots that YouTube came from. YouTube is focused now more than ever on catering to businesses, to capitalism, to corporations, so that they as a platform can make as much money as possible and constantly be selling you something. And there is very little way around it. So, what do we do now? What do we do in terms of the road that YouTube is going down? In my opinion, I think that the best thing you can do is to go outside and live as much of a normal life as you can. Try to get back into some non-internet hobbies. For example, I crochet and I've started to get back into reading a lot recently. I also try to connect more with friends and family in person than online. Just do whatever you can to try to center your life more around real things and not YouTube. I think that a lot of people now, more than ever, are wishing they could go back to days before YouTube existed. Sometimes even before the internet existed. Also, I think it's perfectly okay to miss what YouTube used to be. Because unfortunately, I don't know if we'll ever get back to a point where it feels like that again. But the best thing that you can do going forward is do your best to not be part of the problem. Don't contribute to online toxicity on the platform. Don't try to get rich quick by posting short-form brain rot content on the platform. That's one of the worst things you can do in terms of contributing to YouTube. And most of all, don't be afraid to take a step back. If you enjoyed the video or have any thoughts related to this topic, feel free to leave a comment below letting me know. I would be more than happy to continue this discussion. Overall, though, that's going to be it for me. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.